welcome to Tech Latest from Nikkei Asia, where we bring you the freshest updates from the technology sector in Asia. I'm your host, Katey Creel, and in this week's episode, I'm talking to two of our reporters, Sayan Chakraborty in Bengaluru and Yifan Yu in Silicon Valley, about what AI is doing to jobs. Welcome to the show, guys.
Always good to be here.
Thanks. Good to be back.
Great to have both of you. This is one of the few times we've had two reporters on at once, so I'm excited to get started. So without further ado, let's dive in. So ever since OpenAI ushered in the start of the age of generative AI, one of the big expectations for artificial intelligence technologies is that it will just revolutionize the way we work, which sounds great and fun and exciting. But to put it in a bit more somber terms, a lot of people are worried this means losing their jobs. So Yifan, being in Silicon Valley, you've seen a lot of these concerns and already job losses up close. What's the employment situation like there and in the US more broadly?
So it has been a really weird year in Silicon Valley. If you look at the stock market, and you would assume everybody is happy and rosy, having a wonderful Christmas because it's doing so great. But actually, people on the ground, most people are very worried because we have seen so many layoffs in different big techs and small startups alike. So far, there's already over 100,000 tech employees being laid off in this year alone, and people are expecting more.
Oh my gosh.
And overall in the US, the job market is also not doing great. In November, we saw over 70,000 job cuts, which is up about 25% from last year. But it's already better than October, because in October, there was over 150,000 job cuts, which almost doubles from the same period last year.
Oh my gosh.
We don't know if AI is the sole contributor to the job losses. It's probably not, but according to some studies, there has been over 50,000 job lost directly contributed to AI since 2023. So since the starting mass adoption of ChatGPT. And the terrifying part, sorry, I haven't even got to the most terrifying part, is that this is only the start of the revolution. Because earlier this year, the Anthropics, one of the AI players in the US, their CEO has predicted that the AI could wipe out roughly 50% of all entry-level white-collar jobs.
That's
in
amazing.
The next
Half.
Yeah, and it's only in the next 1 to 5 years, which potentially could lead to an unemployment rate of 10% to 20% in the US. And that could happen as soon as next year or to next 5 years. So just to think about it, it doesn't put you in a holiday mood.
No, definitely not. I hope a lot of those people who are worried about their jobs also have some stock holdings to fall back on. So that's the downside for the US. Clearly, there's a lot of uncertainty and what I think the phrase is jobless growth. But elsewhere, there's also job gains, as you found in your reporting, Sayan. Can you tell us a bit about what you found? Maybe it's a bit more positive side of this trend.
Right. So, Katie, what is happening in India at this time is very similar to what happened during the first wave of tech outsourcing, which was in the early 1990s when, the IT services companies were just coming up, the BPOs were booming here. I mean, it started with low-end work like, software testing, infrastructure management, BPOs, telecalling, and all this stuff. And then gradually moved up the ladder. Now you see a lot of cutting-edge work happening in India as well around software, chip design, so on.
Right.
Now, similarly with AI, a lot what is happening at this moment is around data, which is the building block for AI. There are a bunch of these companies that are working on creating or cleaning data to train AI models. And that's supposed to be a 7 billion industry by the end of the decade, by the way.
Oh my gosh. Just that one fairly narrow segment.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah. So, think of data preparation, model testing, prompt design, AI quality assurance, or, agentic system oversight, things like that. Now, that's creating a lot of jobs. Now, the good part is these don't need to, for doing these jobs, one doesn't need a very high technical acumen. You need to have a clear head and the ability to navigate a computer. So college graduates, let's say in humanities, commerce, basically any non-technical student, they can do these jobs with some amount of training.
Oh, so it's pretty democratic.
Yes, yes. Fortunately, so for India, because we all know that number of white-collar jobs in India is already shrinking. Like it's shrunk from 24% around pandemic to 22% as a proportion of overall employed people. So that's a concern. Now, what is triggering this outsourcing boom? Of course, there is cost arbitrage. Talent is relatively cheaper in India, but there is also a high talent density. Like there are more than 30 million college students in India at this moment, and hardly enough jobs. So what do they do? Now, the thing is, are these jobs going to make you wealthy like, some of the big tech jobs can do, or those in finance? Possibly
Right.
not. But it is better to have something than nothing, because again, the white collar jobs are shrinking and it's a tough market. So this outsourcing wave is set to benefit India's youth, or at least gives them their first break into the corporate world. Even though we can debate how financially rewarding these jobs are.
Right.
Yeah. But also that said, are jobs not being lost in India? Definitely. I mean, India is data poor in terms of jobs, so it's very hard to assess the exact impact. But anecdotally, and we wrote a story about this. I mean, people have slowed down hiring as they drive in efficiencies, like roles in content creation, marketing, telecalling, recruitment, etc., are taking a hit because companies are trying to do more with the same or less workforce. But then simultaneously, these are some of the new jobs that are coming up to even things out.
Right. So overall, it's probably been a net gain for India because, as you said, we haven't seen the massive layoffs, at least as far as we know. And
Yeah,
I think we have talked about companies like big ones like Tata Consultancy was
right.
retraining a lot of their workforce rather than, so maybe not hiring as much as they would have, but yeah, better than
Yeah.
the worst
I mean,
fears.
hiring has definitely slowed down. I mean, nobody is attributing these layoffs to AI explicitly. I mean, so we don't really know. They're all
Yeah.
talking about a slowdown in overall business, so on and so forth. But I'm sure, there is a consensus that people are trying to become more efficient, and they overhired around 2020, 2021. So they are kind of making amends now. So yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think we see that in the US a bit as well, is even if AI is totally the reason you're firing people, there's a bit of a hesitancy to say, that's what you're doing because, just the optics aren't good. Would you agree with that assessment, Yifan?
Yeah, totally. I think there's always a lot of talks from the top executives about, oh, AI is not going to replace our workers. It's going to be a work companion to our employees, and people will get reskilled and upskilled to do new jobs. But the question is, what new jobs? And
Right.
I don't think anybody has a clear answer to that yet.
That is a big question. And another big one is for places like India and elsewhere. How long will the boost in hiring last? Because right now we're at the forefront of AI adoption. There's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done, and you want a lot of human input on that. So that might not continue forever. Is anyone that you've talked to, Sayan or Yifan, worried about this trend ending soon?
Right. So see, these companies, they understand that the kind of work may change. I mean, for instance, initially, a lot of the work that they got was around autonomous vehicles. Like, those clients would send them LiDAR images and they would annotate, like, here is another hatchback, here is a sedan, there is a motorcycle, there is a roadblock, etc., etc. But, that has changed. Now, a lot of what they're doing is around Gen AI or agentic AI. I mean, they're testing how efficient the models are. I mean, for instance, this is uh, something that we didn't write about in the story, but there is this thing called red teaming. I mean, for instance, if someone wants to know the gender of their unborn child, which is illegal in India, I mean, they might as well upload images of the scan and ask the system, like can you predict the gender? And in all likelihood, the AI engine will say, no, this you're not authorized to know this, so on and so forth. Now, a
Right.
smart person can also ask, I want to buy clothes for my unborn child, and based on the images, can you suggest some clothes?
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah. So they're trying to game the AI engine. Now the idea is to understand if they can fool AI, and if the engine kind of gives out answers. So what
Wow.
Objectways also does is to test the AI engines with such tricky questions.
Right.
So,
Oh,
so,
that's really
yeah, so
interesting.
different kinds of work, and now what they're doing is they're also creating data for humanoids. I mean, that's a booming industry. A lot of work is happening on that front. Like, people, uh, they have this GoPro camera strapped to their forehead, and they basically move
Right.
things from one place to another. Sounds pretty mundane, but apparently there is a big demand for this kind of job. So what the industry executives basically say is outsourcing overall is never going to stop. I mean, for
Hmm.
instance, we also spoke with another company called Nextwell, and they say a lot of their work has moved from pure annotation to maintenance. I mean, for instance, if there is a shop which has automatic checkouts, like for instance the Amazon shops, not exact Amazon is not possibly not their client, but those kinds.
Right.
Yeah. So the sensors and cameras, they may malfunction, and the teams in India will scan the videos and identifies the mistakes that those systems have made, and they generate a bill accordingly. So those corner cases or edge cases, they will always exist, and thus outsourcing will also last, is what their guess is. Now, how long will this last? It's anybody's guess. But I would say until the AI engines become completely accurate, and there are the doubts if they can be. So people are optimistic that this outsourcing will not stop, but maybe the nature of projects, the nature of work, that could change, and that's anybody's guess.
Right, but so I think in addition to Science point about the nature of the outsourcing jobs are constantly adapting to the needs,
Hmm.
another like good indications of how long this outsourcing demand gonna last will be the cost benefit. It will depends on how long can Asia remain cost competitive compared to AI. Because like based on very basic economic principles, like the work like people want to replace, either it's one is easy to replace. The second is the work has to be really expensive. That's why you see a lot of people are replacing like software engineers in Silicon Valley that probably get paid like $300,000 a year for entry level jobs with AI. But in Asia, I think Sayan has a better insight to this, but they don't get paid nearly as much as $300,000, right? So it's the priority to replace those workers with AI is not such a high priority for the companies. And also, we are humans after all. Like if you American company has been working with Indian outsourcing firms, third party vendors for a long time, those kind of relationship is long lasting, and you have to factor into the human factor into this kind of decision making as well.
I think that's a really good point, and kind of an uplifting note to wrap up on is that there is always going to be a human angle in this because there will be always these concerns or questions over is AI, fully accurate? Can we really trust it? And I think at the end of the day, most people do want to know that if something were to go wrong, if there were an issue, somewhere in the system is a human they can talk to and say, help me. There's an issue. So perhaps our jobs are safe for a bit longer.
For sure. I would definitely feel comfortable to know the end of the call is not just an AI, but there's an actual human being I can talk to.
Right. And I hope this also holds for journalism. I think everyone will really like to know that we've got some really great humans giving us these stories.
For sure. And we have a lot more good reporting by great humans that's done on the subject about how AI is changing our everyday life, like our jobs, like our education system, and our society in general. So keep listening to our podcast and follow our reporting.
I couldn't have said it better. Thank you, Yifan. Thank you, Sayan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katey.
That's all for this week's episode. For more of Nikkei Asia's tech coverage, visit asia.nikkei.com. You can also subscribe to our weekly Tech Asia newsletter, which will be delivered to your inbox every Thursday. Thanks again for listening, and check back with us next week for more updates on the tech trends that matter.